In this video I'm going to give you a demonstration of my process for importing samples from the computer into the Yamaha TX16W sampler. And for the sake of this demonstration I'm not going to use the Yamaha but Sonic Charge Cyclone, which is a really nice emulation of the sampler that runs the same operating system called Typhoon. So here I have some samples of a drum machine. It's the Roland TR626 and they're from a collection called the Tape Drum Machine Collection from Gold Baby. Let's hear the samples for a moment. Now I know these fit in memory on this machine because this machine has 6 megabytes of memory and this is 2 megabytes of samples, but that doesn't fit on a single floppy disk. But the cool thing is that if you compress the samples, they will fit on a single floppy disk. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we need to do is to convert the samples from WAV format to AIFF format, because that is a file format that this sampler understands, unlike WAV files. So we take each WAV file, and we use SOX, the audio conversion program, to convert the file into an AIFF file. And let's change the sample rate to one of the native sample rates of the Yamaha. This -G is here to tell SOX to automatically reduce the gain if it sees clipping, because this sample rate conversion can introduce clipping. So now we have some AIFF files, and just to check, I already know they don't fit, but let's make a floppy and see that they don't fit. So I've just made a floppy image that is a two-sided double density disk with 2 sectors per cluster, and we can copy, we can try to copy the AIFF files on there, and it's going to complain that the disk is full. I've only got 16 files on here, and there are 35 files here. So the solution is to compress the audio. One of the cool features of Typhoon, and hence of Cyclone, is that it has its own lossless audio compression format that lets you squeeze the files on there after all. Lets you squeeze these files on a single disk. As you can see here that it's clearly running out of space. So let's compress them. I'm using a command line utility that I wrote myself because I couldn't find a program that did this to compress the files. And now I'm making a typo. There we go. Now we have these C01 files. Let's reformat the disk and copy the C01 files on there and see if that fits, and it does. And we even have space left, so that's great. Now something else I don't like here, which is all these squiggles in the names, and that's because the file names are too long for an old DOS floppy. So what we should do is rename the files, because that will be much nicer to work with on the sampler. And to do this, I've learned that it's smart to start writing the steps in a script, because then you can repeat the process if you find out that you didn't quite get it right. So let's start over here and remove the AIFF files and the C01 files and the floppy image. So we're back to the WAV files, and let's start making a script. I'll call it make floppy. Let's see if it runs. Yeah. And the first thing I want to do is to create a different directory for us to work in, and I want to erase that directory every time so that we start from a clean slate. So that's called floppy. Copy the files in there and have the script change directory into the floppy directory. That works. You can see this directory is here now. Okay, so the file names. What do we do about that? Well, there's a bit of garbage here that we can get rid of because these underscores we don't need. We don't need this reminder that it's the 626, and this string is everywhere. We don't need that either. So let's see how long the file names are if we get rid of all that. I'll make a loop, and so we want to get rid of this 626 thing, and we want to get rid of the phrase a orig, and we want to get rid of the underscores. Okay, that looks shorter. Now let's see if this is all under 8 characters. To do that, I'm going to cut at 9 characters. And if everything now contains a dot, then the bit before the dot is 8 characters or less. So let's see if there's anything. Let's first select the dots. There's things with a dot in it. I'll invert that. And that means everything has a dot, so everything is 8 characters or less. Cool. So these names are good. And we can go ahead and rename the files. And that looks good. Of course, the originals are still here. That's why I'm working in that other directory, to make my life easier. Okay, we've converted the files. Then we need to convert them to the compressed Typhoon format. And this time I'm going to capture the base name. First we use SOX to convert the WAV file to an AIFF file. And then we use the DWVW utility to compress the AIFF file to a C01 file. Then we need to format the disk. Okay, and we copy all the C01 files on there, and then we check our work by printing the directory listing. And that looks good. The floppy has a name, that's good. There are no squiggles in the names, and they're all compressed, and there's plenty of space left. Cool. Now let's load that into Cyclone. Am I already in the right directory? I think so. Why aren't you opening that file? Let's try that again. There we go. Load all the files on the floppy. This takes a while because it's emulating the speed of an original floppy drive. Okay, that worked out. By the way, you can see here the name of the floppy that we put in over here, showing up here. That's really nice when you use a Gotek drive where you only have a numeric display for your floppy images, because this can give you confirmation what floppy you're dealing with. Okay, so we have the samples, and I'll just quickly make a voice so we can hear them. And we'll just add them into a split. I prefer using a group for drum samples because then you can use individual outputs, but for this demonstration a split is faster. Okay, now all the samples are in, and let's see if we can play them. Okay, you can hear that the samples cut off when I let go of a key. I don't want that right now, so we go to parameter 8 and we set the mode to one shot. Because this is a split, this means that all samples are now one shots. There's more, of course. And we stop here because there's only 35 samples. And that's it. That's how I use the computer to prepare samples and put them on a floppy image so that I can then take the floppy image on a USB stick to the real sampler and then carry on from there. I'll put links in the description so you can find the tools that I'm using here and read more about them if you want. And thank you for watching. Bye.